Okay, cool. Very nice. Hello, everybody out there in TV land. This is Al Simpson of Vampires in New Jersey fame. Right now, Bunny Goes to Space. I'm doing a Kickstarter, so go there and check out all the cool art. And it's the first issue. I'm on with Andre Saballette. Am I saying that correctly?
Saballette.
Saballette. And he's the man that does film. He has Boathouse Pictures in Philadelphia. And we're looking to work with him on some pieces, hopefully for Vampires in New Jersey. And I just wanted to talk film and comics because on Facebook in the groups I'm in, that's all we talk is film and comics. Andre, you want to give them a little bit of your background? I'm trying to get rid of my shadow. I need you here to do the help me with lighting.
Yeah, we'll get that lit for you.
Yeah.
So I started working for the Walt Disney Company over 10 years ago now. I can't believe that.
Wow.
And I worked with them for a few years. My goal has always been to work in film, and I've always wanted to direct.
Cool.
I started my passion for film, I think, through music, actually. I was a musician and I loved performing. And then eventually someone said, "Hey, have you tried acting?" And I was in a few plays and I absolutely loved it. But I didn't want to stop there. I'm a curious person by nature. And
Right.
so curiosity made me want to learn more about, hey, what's going on behind the scenes. And I realized my passion, my love was directing. And so that's what I've been working on for the past decade, is trying to build up my career as a filmmaker, as a director, now producer. I started Boathouse Pictures. We launched officially in 2013. And for the most part, we've been doing commercial work. But in recent years, we decided to take a step back and look at what we really wanted to do. And what we really wanted to do is make movies. You know, we're in this industry because we care about telling these stories, whether it's a documentary or whether it's a narrative film or whether in this case it's a comic book story. We as people, as humans, we are storytellers. We like to, in one way or another, comment on our current social status, on our history, on our experiences collectively as humans through the art of storytelling. And this is something that's been handed down through generations, and each generation has its own medium of storytelling, from cave paintings to now movies. And so for me, it's like, if we can tell powerful stories that engage with an audience, let's do it. And I'm a huge comic book fan. I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. And here I met Al, and it's just both of our worlds colliding together. He wanted to do a movie. I love working. I've always wanted to work in a comic book adaptation, and here we are.
Now, my question is, what was your instrument?
What was my instrument? So I had a few. I started with the violin when I was in first grade, and I did that for a few years. And then I decided to go completely into right field, and I was like, I want to try the accordion. And so I played the accordion for a while, and I did that for a long time.
That's a really hard instrument, man.
It is. It's very tough. And at the time, it's funny because the accordion was bigger than me, and it's heavy. And so I couldn't even play it standing up. I had to sit in the chair, almost like leaned back with the thing on me.
That's a nice visual.
Yeah, it was huge. But I loved it. I loved playing it. And then I graduated from the accordion to the piano, played a little bit of drums, and I'm now teaching sax. I played sax and clarinet in the jazz band in high school.
Nice.
And now during the pandemic, I was like, I've always wanted to play guitar. And so I just picked up guitar maybe a few months ago. So I can play one full song and half of a few. So I'm getting there.
Cool. Yeah, guitar was, I was a bass player. Now, you know what? I started with trumpet. It must have been 6th grade or 7th grade. I noticed that in the other room, there was a guitar teacher. So I tried to wangle my way into that, but I didn't end up taking bass lessons until I got to high school. And then I started my first band, and I didn't start playing guitar until the 90s.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it's what you've done is amazing. From a string instrument to woodwinds to that's much harder.
It's crazy because I think that just goes back to my curiosity in nature.
Right.
The I'm doing the one thing and I'm seeing the other. It's like, well, what does that feel like? What does that sound like? What is that? You know. So, but each one of them has something that the other one doesn't, and
Right.
brings something new. And so I really enjoy it, and I just love music, and that just led to, I think, the path of discovery. Like the music really touches you, and I think with my filmmaking, music plays a huge role.
Now, we'll go with film. What's a movie that you love that inspired you to do films?
All right, so this is where the comic book intersection comes in. As a kid, I was a cancer patient, and as a very young kid, I really couldn't go out and play and so on, as like most kids did at the time. So movies were how I entertained myself. I lived vicariously through these movie characters. And there were a few movies that as a kid I watched, and it just like really inspired me. Indiana Jones was one of them. E.T. was another. All these characters that were like larger than life, or in the case of E.T., Elliot wasn't larger than life, but because of his friend, he experienced something that was just extraordinary. But there is one movie that I think I can look back and say that one definitely touched, and that's the Richard Donner Superman movie. From a child's perspective, it was just larger than life, and I thought Superman was real. That tagline, "You'll believe a man can fly," really hit me.
I was trying to explain to people the other day. That was the teaser poster for that was like the symbol with a lightning bolt going through it, and then "You will believe a man can fly," which was an amazing concept back to 1978.
And to be honest, like if you look back at it today, some of the flying sequences that they did still hold up. Like, in the first movie when he first reveals it, I mean, you don't see Superman for I think a third of the movie.
No.
So when they finally reveal him, it's this epic moment where Lois is falling from the top of the Daily Planet after a helicopter catches like a cable, and he flies onto the screen, and it still holds up even with the blue screen backdrop. But the shot that I love the most is after he drops her off at the top. The famous "You've got me, who's got you" line. After he drops her off at the roof, he says, "Remember, Miss Lane, flying is still the safest way to travel. And then if you'll excuse me," and then he does the salute and he flies off. And Chris does this amazing, like acrobatic, arched back over the camera and then spins and then flies off. And apparently he did that himself. He choreographed that himself because he said, well, it's awkward when I fly straight over it, so why don't I come up? And they practiced it, and that looks so realistic, and it holds up to this day. So that inspired me. And then, as I got older, there were other movies that were a little bit more character heavy. A Few Good Men, I think, is one. But another one that's very cheesy, especially now because the sequel's out and it's, blowing box offices everywhere, was Top Gun. Top Gun, yeah. As a kid, I wanted to be a pilot. I still do, actually. That's a goal in life, is to get a pilot.
Yeah, that is exciting.
But the way that was shot, and now the way the sequel is shot, being able to push that boundary and just shoot on an actual aircraft and sort of rewrite the way a movie is shot, that inspires me to become what I want to be. So long-winded answer. I'm so sorry, but
no, talk as long as you like. There's no commercials here. I think that is interesting how Tom Cruise has been able to try and find excitement for whatever it is he, took an interest in. He did the race car movie, he did the airplane movie, but he found like he looked for like the essence of what makes that exciting. And that's probably, Top Gun's probably the most exciting film about air travel ever. He captured something in that. I haven't seen Maverick yet, but everybody I know who saw it loved it. So
it really did change
to him.
aviation movies. If you look at aviation movies before and after Top Gun, it made a difference, but it still stood alone. Like Tony Scott, to his credit, the director of Top Gun, he pushed the envelope to the point where after Top Gun, they tried to do a few where they really did shoot live sequences with, the assistance of the Navy and everything. But since that, I think there was it was Flight of the Intruder was one that was like around that time, early 90s. And it was like a Top Gun-esque movie. But there were only a handful that really used live flight sequences because it's so dangerous. And you only get one pass at it, right? Because one, the planes are too expensive. So you get them in the air one time and that's your budget. Like that's it. And then two, you miss that shot, you've now blown the budget and the studio's up your butt. So people wouldn't take the risk. And so Tony took the risk, a few others did. And then not until now do we see someone taking a huge risk like that. And I saw it, the risk was worth it. They hit a bullseye. Like that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Well, Tom took the risk because he produced it. So, but he's reaping the rewards. So that's good.
Yeah.
I know he puts his money where his mouth is with the Mission Impossible series because he bought the franchise and developed it out to what it is today. So,
I think to his credit, personal issues aside or whatever people.
Yeah, that's the thing I like about him is there's him and then there's his work.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And his work is without question. When you put your money down for a Tom Cruise movie, you're going to get your money's worth and more, usually.
I think it goes back to
my friends. I think he's trying to make a snuff film because he keeps doing the riskiest stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah.
When he jumped off that one building and he wrecked his leg in the Mission Impossible thing, then he strapped himself to the outside of an airplane. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like Tom.
He broke his.
We believe you. You can calm down.
You don't have to prove yourself anymore.
You've
shown us.
It's all right.
You've made us believe a man can fly. So no, it's funny, and I think to his credit, something you said is very true. Is that he puts his passion towards something, and
it feels like it. Yeah.
When he hones in on a character, it's not just the aesthetic of it. I think what makes a Mission Impossible work, and what makes a Transformers feel like weird is that on the one hand, despite the action, despite the explosions and everything, there's really a grounding to the character, and every character he plays has a human element to it, like a real depth to it, even if it's like a shallow character like in Tropic Thunder.
Right.
The reason that is so hilarious is because he goes
well, they said they based that on a real guy.
Well, so, he goes 1,000% in on it. So, I like you said, there's him and there's his work, and his work speaks for itself. So,
you can count on. So, comics to movies. Do you have a favorite comic, and how it was transferred to a movie or character, and pros and cons?
I would say my favorite comic to movie, and this is. Including everything that we've seen with like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, everything.
Yeah.
But I think the best comic to movie is probably the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
We talked about that before. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
really in the late 80s, they really, I think it's one of the few movies that really took the characters from the page. It just brought them to life. Right. And every aspect of it, especially if you look at the early, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics with the shadows and the use of light, and there is some fun to them, but there's also emotion and darkness, and they captured it all in that first Ninja Turtles movie. to this day, it holds up. It looks great. It looks better than the CGI turtles that we saw in the last Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something to be said for the realistic, portrayal of things. I know when I'm thinking, whenever I see like behind the scenes with Iron Man, it takes me back to Zathura, which was Favreau's movie before that, where he did robots.
Mhm.
And I remember the robots were like, balsa wood, but then half CGI and half real to
Yeah.
give it a different feel to it. And that really worked. And I think that's what sold them on his version of Iron Man, Marvel, because he had pulled it off in Zathura. And I remember seeing the behind the scenes for that. And it was like the top half was like, looked, pretty mechanical. And then the bottom half, I think it had a wheel on it so the robot could roll around or whatever. So that was CGI. But yeah, there's a lot to be said for that realistic portrayal of things like they did in the first Ninja Turtles compared to not so great kind of okay CGI.
And I think that goes back down to like bringing the character into our realm.
Right.
The first Jurassic Park movie, Terminator 2, Zathura, Iron Man, all of those movies used like the world we live in. They used the practical element of texture to create these characters,
Right.
and they use CGI in my opinion. And this is strictly my opinion because people might think whatever they want about
Yeah.
CGI and everything, and that's the beauty of filmmaking. Is it's subjective. It's
Right.
you love what you love, and you love it because of something, and so no one's opinion is truly wrong. But in my opinion, it was the perfect blend of CGI and practical effects because the core of it was practical. The core of it was tangible. It was there, and then you enhance it with CGI. And I think that's just the perfect way of doing it.
Right. Enhance it. Don't build the whole thing. Enhance it.
And that's
that's the key.
Going back, here's the I forget what that's called. Where you the callback. Here's the callback. Top Gun did the same thing. Top Gun used visual effects and CGI to enhance things, but they had physical planes doing most of the stunts. So
right, it makes sense, and it just looks, trying to get a sense of realism with even a fantasy concept helps draw people in. I feel.
Yeah,
I think that to me that's what Marvel always did with their comics in the 70s and probably into the 80s. They tried to ground it in some way to get people to identify with it personally, which is what I try to do with my books for the most part. Bunny Goes to Space is a little out there because it's in space. So that was one where I kind of we're kind of throwing everything up in the air, but everything else is pretty grounded, New Jersey, Philadelphia, New York based type stories,
And I think what works with characters that are grounded, it doesn't matter where they go. It doesn't matter if they're in space, if they're on Earth, if they're in another planet. We all connect. This goes back down to what I said before about us connecting as humans. Like we all understand struggle. We all understand the ups and downs of that life throws at you. That's why a character like Darth Vader, which is completely, talk about fantasy. It's a guy who's like half cybernetic and can use the Force to like choke people and is in a completely different galaxy and all these things. That's how a character like that can still connect with people, and people like that character on a deeper level because at Darth Vader's core, he's a person and he's someone who's struggling. And we see that. And that's why, despite how horrible the person he is in the realm, you can still find a soft spot and say, like, if only he had been guided in a certain direction, or if, and that's why you have hope for him at the end.
Right. Yeah, I think eventually, I don't know, maybe Lucas had planned that the whole time, but by Return of the Jedi, you felt like, Luke wanted to redeem his father. Not that I'm giving anything away. I always feel like I'm giving something. I would hope everybody's seen it by now. But
there's always a new fan somewhere.
Yeah, but there's some hope that they can come back, which is powerful. in a lot of ways. Now, I haven't watched. Everybody's complaining about the new Star Wars TV shows. I haven't watched them, so maybe I'll get into them eventually. Obi-Wan was just on, which some people love.
The only one I've seen is Obi-Wan.
Yeah, yeah.
I
People were
enjoyed
raving.
it.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
yeah,
I think so. I've always said that I felt like there wasn't enough. There was too much of a gap between episode 3 and episode 4.
Oh, yeah.
And this filled in some of that,
Yeah.
but I think there's still more to fill. And I
Right.
think what this does is it gives you a little bit of that, but it leaves room to continue that story because there's so much that you can fill in between. I guess now a Rogue One. Rogue One kind of took some of that.
Yeah, they're gonna do a Rogue One TV show too, which
So
I really liked it because it
Yeah.
felt like it was a one-off, and to me that gave it a heavier weight.
yeah,
It was like all or nothing. This is it. We're not doing 10 movies after this. There's no time travel that's going to fix everything. This is it. You know what I mean? So,
and the cool thing about the Star Wars franchise though is that you have so many characters, some that were initially throwaway characters that have developed. Look at Boba Fett, right? Boba
Right.
Fett was just a bounty hunter, kind of a
Yep.
throwaway character, and his legend grew larger than the actual character on screen. You don't really see him. You don't really hear him. He has maybe like one line, a handful of shots, but somehow he grew the largest following
Legendary. Yeah.
to the point where he became a legend and now, ended up in The Mandalorian. So
Yep.
that's the beauty about creating a solid character that you can relate to.
Yeah, the funniest thing to me is that with the independent comic circle I'm in right now, people always think comics is like 100% guys, and it was when I was in '78 when I went to my first con. But it's a lot of women who are really into this stuff now. Even when I do something like Bunny, which is female oriented, when I ship, my backers are usually like 20 to 30% women, and my artists are like 30 to 40% women. So I guess Boba Fett and who's the other one? The Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian.
Yeah, they're like sex symbols online. Like these chicks really dig them, and that's funny to me. You know what I mean? Because in '77, yeah, well, that's part of it. But they're. I know Favreau. Once again, back to him. Wanted the Mandalorian to be like the good, the bad, and the ugly in space. So there's that, man with no name mystery about the Mandalorian, and apparently women respond to that, which to me is cool. Because that was always our big thing in '78 when I went to my first con. Do you think women will ever be into this stuff? Nah, they'll never be into this stuff. Well, now it's being presented in a way, that's accessible to everybody, which is to me more fun.
And the great thing about it too is that you're creating an opening for women in this realm, not just with women liking the male characters, but really developing strong female characters within the realm of these stories. You're really fleshing out and showing the power of women in these universes, which opens the door to young women, girls to really say like, oh, I look up to her. I look up to her because of this or that, or but then also, they do relate to some of the guy characters and vice versa. I think some of the guys who would normally be caught up liking the male character that they're being force-fed now see a strong female character and may connect with her on a different level and say like, yeah, that's what I want to be like. So I think the beauty about the comic medium, the beauty about just literature in general is that the story's never over. And one book closes, but the other is always waiting there in the,
Feels like it.
Mm-hmm.
I know Marvel's been able to do that in a magnificent way, in a generic way for some people, but in a magnificent way where they at least get to tell more and more stories, which I think is the point, being able to, create more that people can enjoy.
What I love what Marvel's doing is they're telling stories with characters that would be considered C-list or D-list characters.
People starting to complain about. A guy was complaining about it online today, and I'm like,
I love
Dude,
that.
Iron Man was never an A-list
No,
character.
Iron Man was
Look
definitely
what they
like,
did with that, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. And I think like, why not? You know,
Yeah,
the A-listers will always be A-listers, you know.
right,
And if anything, now you can reserve when an A-lister comes in, it's an
right.
epic thing. You know, like
Yeah,
the A-lister has to come in because the stakes are that high.
right.
Now you need the big guy to come in and bring in the big guns, as they say. But
Yeah,
you have all these other characters that do have a strong following in comics, but
right.
that don't ever get represented on screen, and so you're
Yeah,
you're broadening their reach. I just finished watching Miss Marvel,
yeah,
and I genuinely enjoyed it. It was such a fun series,
yeah.
and you could see that they took a risk, and the risk was it's different than the rest of the Marvel universe in the sense that
That's good.
it
Just
was
like the comic
campier.
would be different, you
It
know?
was campier. There was an element of comic bookiness to it. It was funny. It was um, it was like young and new, and so I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I've heard it's fantastic. I'll get to it. I mean, I'm still watching Daredevil again, so their backlog is so great now. It's like you can and Doctor Strange just hit Disney Plus, and you know what I mean. It's kind of like you know, I'll get to it. It's all there.
I rewatched the Daredevil series, and I
Yeah,
forgot how good it was.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
That's what I
excited
did.
for the new ones to come out
Yeah,
now because I rewatched the old ones.
yeah. I
Um,
started watching the first season. I was like, I just forgot how like stirring this is. You know, that first like the dark shots and everything and the rain and it's great. It's just fantastic. All right, I guess I'll get to the money shot here. So we're gonna work together on some vampires in New Jersey. I don't want to give away too much, but I'm excited to work with you on it. Um, what is it you think we can create? Like, is there a certain type of how do you see it? I'll say that. That's easy.
so the way I know I mentioned Ninja Turtles before, and the
Yeah.
way I see it is being able to bring the pages of the comic book to life.
Right.
I want to be able to capture the essence of what makes everyone who loves Vampires of New Jersey love Vampires of New Jersey. I want to be
Right.
able to capture that and bring it on screen so that when the audience sees the characters, they say that's what I experienced. That's what I
Yeah.
always saw in my mind. That's
Yeah.
I think but I also want to like we talked before is grounded in reality. Grounded in our realm. It's now going from the pages of the book to the streets of New Jersey, Philadelphia, and
Yeah.
all these places.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm excited too, man. I don't want to give too much away
Yeah.
because I
Me
want
neither.
this to be a true experience for the audience and
Yeah.
everyone who's following
Yeah.
this project and everything. But I'm really excited, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity you gave me to really work with you. I'm really excited to see what we can do together.
Yeah. The script I sent you is kind of a sizzle thing that's not in the actual comic, but it introduces everybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you the graphic novel. I'll send you the PDF for that, so you can get a taste of like the graphic novel itself is 3 issues, but it's like the first film out of a trilogy.
And
And
I really like that sizzle you sent me. And I think it's the perfect way of introducing the characters with enough mystery. There's so
yeah,
much. There's enough action in it and excitement to hook the audience in, but there's
yeah,
definitely an element of like, well, where's this going to go? And
yeah,
I think I think that's catching lightning in a bottle, and I think we can do it, man. I'm
yeah,
excited.
yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I'll send you the first graphic novel, which is funny because I did a con last weekend, and I got a ton of these graphic novels just for COVID, and then COVID hit, so it was like for a year. I'm sitting like my wife's like, there's a garage full of graphic novels. We have to, like, you told me you were going to get these, and we were going to, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that, but a pandemic hit, sweetheart, and but now I'm out there, and I've since then I put out more issues. So I have a first graphic novel, second graphic novel, and a couple more issues. And a guy bought the first one with him and his girlfriend. Were walking by my table. I gave him my pitch: vampires versus the mob, like True Blood versus Sopranos. He's like, all right, cool. And he gets the graphic novel. That was like 11 o'clock. By 3 o'clock, he comes running back to my table. He goes, dude, I read that first graphic novel. It's incredible. I got to get the second one. I'm like, this is working. With some people, it's really working. And with most people who read even the first issue, they want to read more. It hooks them. So we definitely have something there. I just want to, translate that to something visual that people can really get into.
Absolutely. And I think we can do that. And I think what you experienced there is that someone connected with your characters on a deeper level, and that's what we want. We want to be able to cast a wider net, because there's the cool thing about comics is that there are people who get to the movies through the comics, and there are people who get to the comics through the movies. And I always think it's really exciting when a movie can hook someone enough to force them to read. Like if we can create a strong enough character where they want more, they're going to go to the pages and start reading and want that. And so if we can do that, that's awesome.
Yeah. That was basically all I wanted to go through with you. I know you had a rough week as far as film. I can hear the baby in the background. So I know you want to get some rest. I know you have an early call time because we talked before you started, because you're filming now, which is what a film guy should be doing, which is great.
I'm shooting now. We're shooting a feature locally. I'm not allowed to say much about it.
I know. But I wasn't going to ask about it because I figured, I'm just going to get the old, I can't talk about it, but that's good.
I can't talk about it, but it is, it's been a challenging experience at times because of long hours and everything, but it's also been a lot of fun with the crew and everyone involved. So,
well, I mentioned what we're working on to the community, comic people and film people that I know, and they're all very super excited.
Sweet. Let's get this going.
We're getting a nice buzz. Yes, we will. Bunny is exploding more than I expected it to. So it's up around 28 now, I think, heading for 29.
Wow.
And I still have 9 days to go. So
that's
that's another character where obviously somebody likes the character. So I'm just trying to grow my shared universe comic series so that we can, pull a Walking Dead and work for the next 10 years for, ANC or something. You know what I mean?
I'm in.
Yeah, I've got, and I started writing again, because I teach too. So I know I have to get prepared for that next month. So I said to myself, you know what? Every day I'm going to write 5 or 10 pages of each, series. So I have a backlog. So I have plenty when the artist is available and the funds are there. Just let's go. Another comic. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Keep going. But I appreciate you taking the time. I want you to get some rest, and we'll get things going very quickly here. And we'll talk other details off of here, of course.
For sure.
I appreciate the opportunity to work with you. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I think we're going to turn it into something magical. So
I'm totally excited. Al, thanks for having me.
And thank you, Joe Garifano, because I know you're listening.
Yeah, for sure. Joey, thanks so much, man.
Joe's the man.
Joe is awesome. And
he connected us.
Yeah.
And Joe is the best of media. If everybody in entertainment was like Joe, everybody would be happy all the time, on the set, off the set, regardless.
I agree. I've known Joe and it's crazy to think this, but I've known Joe for more than half my life now. And I love him to death. And, I'm very thankful for this opportunity. I want to thank you, Al, for having me on the podcast, but also for giving me the opportunity.
Anytime you want to come on and talk film, I'd love to.
Man, I'll let you know. But definitely thank you for giving me the opportunity to bring your characters to life. That's something that I think is very special. It's a very special honor to be able to take someone else's work and work on it. So
well, we're collaborating, man.
Absolutely.
We'll make it, something more than it is. So, which will be very cool. But you get some rest. I know you got a tough week ahead of you, and we'll get together. But that's Andre Saballette, everybody. Boathouse Pictures. Go online, check their stuff out. They do festivals. They're working with us. They do, But Andre is the man. We're gonna do some cool stuff. So.
Thanks, Al.
All right.
Thanks everybody for having me.
Good night to everybody at the same time. And I didn't want to keep them too long, but I wanted to have a little conversation because everybody's watching comics and films, even when they don't know it was a comic. You're watching 10 years of Walking Dead. That was a comic. Things are being developed now. Hopefully we can get in the mix. But in the meantime, we're going to make something cool for everybody out there. So,
Sounds
all
like
right.
a plan. I'm excited. There's a big adventure ahead.
There you go. All right, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Let me cut this loose.